Hi, I'm Pox.
Couchguy.
You're watching the Two Smart Guys show, where every week we bring you the latest and greatest in tech news, mods, hacks, and fun
Fun
little
stuff.
utilities that make life easier for the
Well,
tech guru.
if you can't be made better, what is the point? You got to make everything easier, better, and just less pain in the butt.
Yeah, so this week we're going to be going over remote access. If you ever wanted to get to your computer when you're away from it, or other computers, or help people, we're going to go over a bunch of little programs or technologies that would help you greatly.
In fact, it's amazing, actually. It's much benefited my experience, I'll tell you that.
So if you I live in an area where the nearest town from a town is at least 10, 30 miles away.
Yeah.
And we all kind of, like where I work, I have to travel constantly between like 3 or 4 different communities that are at least 10 to 30 miles apart. So if I can help somebody, right click and reinstall a print driver without having to drive for 40 miles, this is way better.
Well, not only that, but some people think that you have to have the computer miles away. I use remote access for computers in my house. I have had, I don't right now, but I've had up to 5 different computers doing different things in my house. I've had NAS boxes. We've talked about those. I've had media servers, multiple. I've had my Windows PC, my Linux PC, and laptops, different things around my house. And guess what? Of all the computers I have in my house, only 2 of them had monitors hooked up to them and keyboards hooked up to them. The other one sat with an internet connection to it and Ethernet connection to my network, and that was it. And there's only one way to get into those, is as through remote access.
Yeah, this is the way to go. Like especially if you want to move files from one machine to another. Like if you take your laptop out of your house and you're like, oh, I forgot that.
Yeah, nothing worse than forgetting
document.
you did something.
Or nowadays, if we got broadband, like a video.
Well, how many people, especially if you're technologically inclined, it doesn't seem to matter how much inclined you are. If you are the one in the family who understands how to program the VCR, you are now the tech support for the family. You're the first line of defense. And it doesn't matter what it is. You are the first person. So it's, you will be getting a phone call. I get them every now and then from my wife, my mother-in-law, saying, oh no, my computer is doing blank. How do I fix it? And some of the things we're going to show you can help you with that.
Yeah, so by default, if you're using Windows, which the majority of people are, you've got remote desktop protocol. So you got a remote desktop session, which
often referred to as RDP.
Yeah, RDP, and I think it was developed originally by like Citrix, which is, we'll get into that later. But it allows you to, on a Windows machine, to type in an IP address of another computer on the same network, or the host name if you know the name of the computer, and remote control it. So you can log in with the username and password, and it's pretty simple. You just have to turn it on the remote machine to allow remote access, and then it's pretty straightforward. You can see what's going on the other computer. It doesn't have sound, which is one of the limitations of RDP. You can do file transfers. You can do printing, which is one of the few things that it can do that other ones can't do as well. You can print from... You can use the remote machine and print from your local machine, which is kind of cool.
Which we should note that, is even as advanced as we've gotten, having a graphical interface on a remote machine is still a pretty significant thing. Your graphics on most of the machines, unless you're paying on a really, really high-end line for both machines, both computers have to be on a really fast connection, and both machines have to be pretty fast period computers to get a really high-quality interface from the other computer. But getting things like smooth video playback or audio are almost never there. That's just because it's just a lot of data to move across. So most programs leave it out or have a really limited, ability to do so.
Yeah, and I believe the way remote desktop works, it actually does some pretty cool stuff where it doesn't necessarily transfer all the information doesn't like refresh the whole screen. It actually just sends the local area that you're using, and it'll even, if you're going Windows to Windows, use some of your local information to update it, so you don't have to
And
transfer everything.
if you remember Windows 95, and this is genuine, most of the screens look like the same color space as a Windows 95 machine.
Yeah,
and that's so it's not uncommon to see that. Don't expect to get like this Ferrari graphic interface, because the fact that you can see an icon to touch and to click on and to do that and kind of see what the other person's seeing is a huge improvement compared to some of the ways that it's been doing. But that doesn't mean it's better or worse than the old ways. It just means it's different.
And if you're running Linux or Macintosh, you're probably running some variation of VNC, which is like an open source version of RDP, and it's built into the Mac, and they got some enhancements on top of it. And there's different variations. There's fast VNC, ultra VNC, tight VNC, all these different versions.
Everybody's got their own little tweak to it.
And they usually have like special graphics drivers that install that allow like compression of video and things and sound.
Because it'll compress it on the way out, and it reads it on the way in. Try to get that file size as small as possible.
Yeah, so VNC is pretty cool. Both of them require that they have specific ports and static IPs. So there's ways around that if you don't. Like if you want to remotely access your computer from home when you're away.
Honestly, both of these protocols, you're going to have to do some homework to learn how to set them up properly so they're consistent all the time, and so that you have access securely. It's more important to be secure than you even realize when you're starting to talk about remote access to your computer, because there are ways, if you just leave ports open and available, and there's a consistency with, especially with RDP, that if that port is open and waiting for someone to just grab onto it and connect to it, and you've just left it unattended without any protection, it's very easy to sniff out that port and get in there.
Yeah, especially if you leave your default passwords to things.
Yeah, and that's just admin, or silly things like that, or no password at all. Some people, honest to goodness, have done that, which is terrifying to me. So.
Yeah, so basically, if you're going to get into either of these two protocols and want to use them off your network, you're going to need either a VPN which gives you a private tunnel between computers over the internet to extend your network, or you're going to need to do some type of port forwarding in your router where it will take your single IP that you get from the ISP and forward the call for that particular service to whatever computer.
Or you'll call for a specific IP and a port, like you'll put your, 100.10.10.10 colon port, 777, things like that are pretty common. People get lazy and they use the same number a lot, over and over, 8888. And what that'll do is you tell your router and you say, every time I call for port 777, which means nothing to the world, I want to go to port 23, which might be your FTP. Is it 23? Was it 22? Doesn't matter. One of them's SSH, the other one's FTP.
Yeah, RDP's 3389 and VNC's 5900.
So what you have to do is you have to tell that your router, and you have to have a little bit of knowledge on your router and saying every time I call for this port, it's going to this computer on the router and this port number. This is what this means. So it's a little bit of a translation. And once again, you do your homework and learn how to do it properly for your router, because
it's always in a different place.
And the same thing, it doesn't add a layer of protection. All the router knows to do is every time someone says, ask for this, send it to this. So just because you have it behind a router now, which some people have the false firewall feeling, that, it's behind my router, so it's fine. So then I punch all these holes through port forwarding and saying, well, no one knows what port 777 is. That doesn't mean that no one's going to finger that port and try and figure out what it is. So just be aware, your security measures don't go down just because you start doing funky things. Believe me, I've scanned a few networks and found a few very, very interesting things.
Yeah, if you don't like people
servers,
sticking fingers in your holes,
yeah, exactly.
You might be better off going with one of these cloud services that kind of does all this work for you.
And honestly, I'll tell you, I and Pox both use, if not one, multiples of these. And it's not that because easier is better. It sometimes it is there's a layer of less complicated with a layer of security makes for just a faster, quicker, get what you need to get done and back. Because I personally use Logmein for a lot of stuff, but if I really have to do work and like have to actually go in there and do command line, stuff like that with some of my Linux machines, I would never be using a Logmein protocol or a Mac or something like that. I would be using SSH or something like that, which got me ground level communication. But if I'm doing tech support with my wife's computer, I just log me in, bounce into it, and I can see her screen, and it's beautiful. What are some of the other ones that we're looking at today, Pox?
So so there's Logmein, which has a free version of it that gives you the simple remote access to your machines. You get an account, and you can set up a bunch of different ones. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. GoToMyPC is a paid one, and it offers a lot of features like the paid version of Logmein. They're pretty similar. They're both about $50 a month for the paid one, or you can do free on Logmein.
Yeah, you can just do a free basic access, which I think I use for most of my machines, the basic access. It doesn't let me do anything besides control the machine. I don't get access to like downloading files or access to, different graphic interfaces or things like that. But
yeah, and
it's getting in there and getting it done.
And Teamviewer is my personal favorite right now.
In the IT and tech support for people, Team is definitely the way to go.
It allows you to do the file transfers without having to pay for it.
So much,
it's free.
It's not free though, right?
Teamviewer is free.
Oh, Teamviewer is free.
Teamviewer is free, and it allows the client to install it without having remote admin access. So if the person doesn't have full control of their own machine, they can still at least install this, and you can log in and help them with little things. And then join.me is, I can't remember if it's a service of Logmein, I believe. It's a remote assistance program. Basically the same thing. It's made so that you can tell your mom or dad or whoever and be like, just go to me.com and type in code 4456, and then bam, you can help them out remotely.
Yeah, and that it just opens what it basically just opens up a terminal system for the communication automatically, so they don't have to install things. That way, if your poor grandma is trying to get things done, and you're just like beside yourself, like, what is the download button? Which is not an exaggeration when it comes to like dealing with some of these questions, because you have people who are like, how do I open what? What is the start button? And
yeah, it's like, where'd the start button go on this Windows 8?
For some of us who've done this stuff, it drives you absolutely nuts, because they'll read the silliest things, and it's a genuine attempt on their part to help get them fixed, but it's more, anyone who's try to help somebody knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's difficult when you're just looking for one line of text for is it on, is it off, and you can't get that far. The one thing that none of these can help you with is if the machine is off that you want to talk to, it won't turn it on.
Well,
there are now by themselves it won't turn it on. There are ways to do it. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
But if the machine is off, the machine is off.
Yeah. Basically, you want to make sure that you check your power settings and that that the machine's not going to go into hibernate mode.
Well, even hibernate mode can be, gotten out of, because I've gotten out of a Logmein in a hibernate. No, I guess it's not. Maybe it's sleep mode.
Yeah, if it's in sleep mode, you can have a wake on LAN that triggers it.
Yeah.
And
if it's off or in a non-powered up state, none of these are going to help you.
Yeah.
And that's probably the first rule that you have to learn the hard way, is that if you like bounce out of your house before a trip and you're like, oh, I'm going to be responsible and turn off my computer, and then you do, and then you get to your meeting and you realize you forgot your damn file and you don't use a drive system that's on the cloud somewhere, you're screwed. Because unless you can call somebody and get them to turn the machine on, it's not going to be a big deal. Like, I honestly, Logmein has, I used to do remote, like when I was, I got my editing stuff here on my home computer, but I also, I do it at work. There are times where I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to send my project to encode at my home computer. I will log into my home computer, launch my editing software, and believe me, it's slow as nails when you're looking at it over the thing, and then just send the project basic stuff, and it will start processing. I log out of it, I come home, and it's done. Simple things like that can really kind of help you out on silly things. Talking to my media server, my media center, which doesn't need to have a monitor. I don't ever do anything with it besides it talks to, it's a play on server, so it just talks to all these other programs. It doesn't need to have anything but be there. Why waste a monitor and keyboard?
Yeah, what do they call them? Headless units, something
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
a headless system.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Old school.
yeah, old school. Thank you for bearing with us so far in the show, and please comment below on what services you guys use, what are your favorites, any advantages, disadvantages of certain services, and we just wanted to touch on like some of the old school ways that people used
Which
to
are
do.
not necessarily bad ways to do it if you can learn how to use them. Because I'll tell you what, they're just as valuable.
They're lean and mean, and they're fast. Like Couch Guy was using SSH here just last year to transfer a bunch of.
Oh, I use SSH. I used to use SSH
Shows?
all the time. Let's just outline what they are now. I think SSH is far superior to anything else we're going to talk about tonight, so we'll spend a little more time on it. But let's talk about what kind of things that people used to use, or what they may think is different kinds of remote access.
Yeah, back in the day, and even still a little bit today, people used to use FTP, which is a file transfer protocol. So you just
Which
set,
I still say is the best way. Have your own cloud. Don't use someone else's cloud. Learn how to do it yourself, because that way it's your stuff. It's you control it.
it's pretty simple. They've got little FTP servers that are like a single file you download. You just launch it, and but you still have the same issues with those first services. You got to set up port forwarding. You got to have a trigger. You got to have a public IP.
Do that stuff, and you've got to set it up correctly so you can get into it from anywhere you want to. Now, why this is included, and people are like, this isn't really control of a machine. The reason why this is included is because you're physically talking to another machine and you're browsing its file structure. Now, can you control the machine the same way as you would through a GUI or through like a lower level access? No. Most of them, the most you can usually do is create a file system and delete a file system, which is pretty nominal, but it is access to a remote system, so we included it.
Yeah, and it's something that we showed you how to set up on the free NAS shows.
Yeah.
It used to be like the way to do websites. It's not deemed as secure now as other methods.
I still prefer it when it comes to like if I want to transfer my files, I want to keep my files. I have this healthy paranoia about people on the cloud looking at my stuff. The nice thing about FTP is I own the hard drive. It sits on my machine. And if for any reason I want to delete this stuff and make sure it's gone, guess what? I have control over it. The cloud, you don't always have that. So just think about it. If you have something you want to keep sensitive, your personal pictures, things like that, and you're like, what do I do with this? You could set up a free NAS system, put it open for the FTP, and guess what? You can still share your files. You can still do this kind of stuff, but you have more control, which is the only reason why I prefer it over some of the cloud systems. Now, it probably has been 10 years since I've heard someone actively use Telnet.
Telnet.
Well, it used to be super popular.
If you remember, if you've really been on computers a while back, like what are the BBSs and
Yeah, you're back into doing billboards and things like that.
Yeah, this
back
is
when
like
we're talking like Windows 95 had more
this
people
is like
using Telnet
before
than they did.
Mozilla
It
and
was
stuff. This was like your main access to the internet, that you would Telnet into the internet. That's how you would connect to the internet.
Yeah, and you would it really you could chat over Telnet. In some ways you could do all kinds of
Had mail programs that
things.
would run inside of it.
Yeah, and you
Pine, fun
could
stuff.
run small command lines from it to another system. And you know what? Most things still have Telnet built into it, because it's not that it's a bad system; it's an unsecure system. Just know that everything on Telnet that you do, it has this false sense of security now, that we think that as soon as we open this command line menu that we're suddenly secure behind this monster shield. It's not true with Telnet. Telnet is like basically posting everything on Facebook and Twitter when it comes to putting it out there.
So basically, Telnet and FTP have pretty much been replaced by SSH.
In most cases, yeah,
yeah.
because SSH is a secure shell tunnel that goes from my computer to my remote computer. And what makes it secure is we both have a set of keys that they have to match up in terms of decryption. If they don't match up, you don't log in. And that's what's beautiful about it, is that not only do you have that, but they have key exchange. So when we were at DEF CON, instead of worrying about talking to my, I would not even try to log in via Logmein. to my home computers with that system, because Logmein runs across port 80, runs across unsecure systems, and who knows who's sniffing areas. I used SSH because I know
I believe they say they use some kind of encryption, but
well, I don't trust anything that I can't guarantee, and I don't know where the keycard exchange is in that. SSH I do, and SSH warns me in case a keycard's nuts. So things like SSH give you freedom to pop into a machine. Now, most of your machines that you're going to do this with are Macs and Linux. You can do it with a PC. It becomes harder because there's other software you have to install, and it's just not as easy. But you can do it. There's SSHFS, which is a SSH file system, which means I can log into and bring up a remote file directory. I actually sent Pox some files via SSH one time just because I could send it to tunnel it and just pump the information, and guess what? I didn't have to worry about...
Because we were trying it over FTP, and the speeds were way faster through SSH.
Yeah.
Like,
because I had almost a dedicated connection that didn't get... So just convenience is sometimes key, but your security is always priority. And SSH, if you learn about it, has some amazing tools, and you can control the computer completely, but most of it's going to be done 100% through a command line terminal.
Yeah, fun stuff.
It's a really big topic. It's a lot of stuff to it. Just know that there are options out there for every single need, and sometimes you need to do your homework to get the best out of your system.
Yeah, so just kind of overview on my personal favorites. For inside my own home network, like controlling stuff, my computer from my iPad and other things, either remote desktop or VNC, depending off if it's Linux, Windows. And if I'm actually remote and out, day-to-day stuff, Teamviewer, and for helping other people out, joinme.com. Those are my personal faves.
Yeah, so. I think I exclusively use Logmein and SSH for everything, just because Logmein I can put on all my Windows PCs, and SSH lets me talk to all my Linux machines very easily.
And thanks again for the marathon session, joining us for the past 30-40 minutes.
Hey, what are you doing? Yeah, it's all right. It's only been a 20-minute. Come on, they're not that bad.
I guess. So, I guess I'm looking at the live show, not the recorded show.
It's a big topic.
Yeah, but post below if you want details like on how to, if you really want to do learn how to do the port forwarding on the remote desktop, and if you want to try SSH or something, just let us know in the comments below. We'll go with whatever's the most popular, and we'll make a little show out of it for you guys. And please subscribe to the feed, see all the rest of our shows, look at the past shows that we've done, and comments.
Just look for fun stuff. We always like suggestions. So until then, enjoy piping into your computer from a distance.
Yep. New shows every Monday. See you guys.
This has been a Two Smart Guys production.